Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving deep into India's new criminal code to tackle a really important question. What's the legal line between an insult and an assault? We're going to look at 3 key offenses against women under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita to figure that out. You know, it's a question a lot of us have probably thought about. Where exactly is that blurry line between someone just being rude and someone committing an actual crime? Well, it turns out the law draws that line with a surprisingly sharp tool. Okay, so let's get right into it. The whole legal idea we're about to unpack is built on this one critical concept: the perpetrator's state of mind. To make this super clear, we're going to climb what I'm calling a ladder of offenses. We'll start at the bottom and work our way up, and you'll see how the law judges an act not just by what was done, but by what the person intended to do. So we're starting on the very first rung of our ladder. And this part is really fascinating because it deals with crimes that don't need any physical contact whatsoever. Yeah, we're talking about just words, sounds, or even gestures. Now, this is not just about saying something offensive in general. For an act to be a crime under this specific section, the law says you have to prove a very specific 2-part criminal intent. And here's what's so interesting. Both of these conditions have to be met for it to be a crime. It's not enough to just think something insulting or even to say it to your friends in private. The law says the act had to be meant to be seen or heard by the woman herself. This illustrates that rule perfectly. In that first scenario, the men are just talking to each other. Their comments might be disgusting, but their intent is a private conversation. The fact that she overhears it is incidental. But in the second case, that man is putting on a show. He intends for her to see it, to be the target of his insult, and that is what crosses the line into a criminal act. That is a great question, and the law is really clear on this. Believe it or not, it doesn't matter. The law is focused 100% on the perpetrator's intent for her to hear it. Whether she actually did or not is irrelevant. The crime is complete the second he acts with that specific 2-part intention. Okay, let's climb up to the next rung on our ladder. Now we're adding a new element into the mix: physical force. This is where we move from simply insulting a woman's modesty to the much more serious offense of outraging it. The key legal phrase here is outrage the modesty. You can see that's a big step up from just insult. The courts have basically said this means an act that's intended to violate a woman's fundamental sexual dignity. So even though the act itself is physical, the crime is still defined by the intent behind it. This is an incredibly powerful idea from a really important case, State of Punjab versus Major Singh, which tragically involved a baby who was only 7.5 months old. The court's decision here established that modesty isn't something that depends on age or understanding. It's an inherent quality that every woman has from birth. And this is just so important. It means that a victim's awareness or their reaction, or lack of one, is not a defense in court. The law protects a woman's dignity whether she's a child, unconscious, or otherwise unable to even comprehend what's happening. The focus stays squarely on the actions and the intent of the aggressor. Okay, now we've reached the top of this particular ladder. Here, the physical act could look pretty similar to what we just discussed, but the law identifies an even more specific, more severe criminal intent. And, as you can imagine, that comes with much tougher penalties. See how specific that is? The physical act might just be pulling on someone's clothes, which is a form of criminal force. But if it could be proven that the aggressor's specific goal wasn't just to outrage her modesty, but to actually disrobe her or force her to be naked, then the crime gets elevated to this much more serious category. So if we look back at our ladder, it all makes sense now, right? You can see this clear hierarchy of harm, and it's all based on the escalating severity of the perpetrator's proven intent, from simply wanting to insult to wanting to outrage, all the way up to wanting to disrobe. And this table just sums it all up perfectly. As that intent gets more invasive and more severe, moving from insulting to outraging to disrobing, the punishment ramps up significantly. It really shows how seriously the law takes this progression of harm. So I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is that the legal system makes these really fine but absolutely critical distinctions. Whether the act was even completed, whether she actually heard the comment, or whether he succeeded in disrobing her, is often secondary. The crime is defined by the aggressor's state of mind. And understanding that is so important for us as a society to be able to recognize and deal with the full range of these offenses. And that kind of leaves us with one last pretty big question. If the law is so focused on intent, then how can we, as a community, as individuals, get better at seeing, calling out, and challenging that harmful intent long before it ever has a chance to escalate up that ladder of offenses?